Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tina Zubovic. I am the head of ballet department, ballet teacher and choreographer at the Primary School for Classical Ballet and Contemporary Dance in Rijeka, Croatia. Welcome to my presentation. The research project that I have undertaken in March and April 2014 explored the ballet studio as a site in which the educational aspect of ballet education was emphasized by development and the application of democratically oriented pedagogy and student-centered learning and teaching methods. I will describe the main findings from my study and give an overview of the pedagogical practices used in my lessons to foster an acquisition of transferable, lifelong learning skills in the ballet technique classes. Let me start by providing you with the context that frames the study. The Primary School for Ballet, where the research was undertaken, is a state-run pre-vocational school, which is in Croatia the equivalent of 10 to 14 age group. Students take weekly classes in ballet, piano lessons, character and historical dances. Croatian national curriculum follows the Vaganova method, which was imported from Russian educational tradition. This teaching method dictates how classes are taught, explanations and demonstrations by the teacher and repetition drills using command teaching style, and also this teaching method dictates what is taught, an extensive training-based syllabus that requires a single correct way of performing movements. Assessment is product-oriented and underpinned by this training-based program. So, why was I concerned? Although most of my students do not become ballet artists, the essence of pre-vocational ballet program we follow is training physical skills and ensuring a high-level preparation for entry into vocational ballet school, rather than a more well-rounded ballet education. Ballet studio is a teacher-centered classroom. Teacher is the all-knowing expert and student is a passive recipient of knowledge confined to drill and practice instruction and transmission teaching. With each new generation, however, we evidence greater diversity of pupils in the school. They come from diverse backgrounds, have different needs and learning styles. However, the same standard for all ethos is the main pedagogical paradigm in my classroom. Students are passive recipients of knowledge dependent on the teacher. Finally, this traditional imported curriculum for ballet does not reflect national educational priorities. Upon this critical reflection, I felt obliged to enable learning that should be valuable to my students both at this moment and in their future, provide my students with opportunities to develop intellectual tools, to think independently and question perceptively, and enable the acquisition of transferable lifelong learning skills in the ballet classroom. Finally, I felt obliged to create a more situated ballet practice that celebrates Croatian national educational goals. I embarked on this practice-based action research project in order to improve my practice. My goal was to research, design and implement a more democratic, student-centered approach to learning and teaching in ballet. Shifting the emphasis from delivering the content and its specialization to the students and their involvement in the learning process, the goal was to foster the acquisition of transferable, lifelong learning skills and make my students more engaged in reflection, inquiry, discussion, collaboration and creative activities. My next goal was to create meaningful non-hierarchical teacher-student relationships, meet national educational goals, and finally determine if and how will the selected strategies enable me to resolve the contradiction between what I value in education and how I teach. Over the course of 4 weeks, 5 female students aged 12 and 13 participated in the project. The study took place at the time when students repeat the exam repertoire and go through the same routine daily. Not to compromise the exam preparation, 2 types of methodologies were drawn upon. One is my traditional, teacher-centered pedagogy reflecting the way I normally deliver ballet lessons, and the other is the new alternative practice reflecting a democratic, student-centered approach to teaching and learning I have taken my students through in one 60-minute alternative session per week. Considering that scholarly voices encourage dance teachers to provide students with opportunities to view situations from multiple perspectives, to analyze, structure and work both independently and collaboratively, to switch from passive to active participation in their learning, I have thoughtfully considered how to enhance student engagement. Therefore, a variety of small group student-directed activities were implemented: a critical friend, peer assessment, the choreography assignment, and classroom discussion feedback on the learning journals. The following data collection techniques were used to note my actions and show their impact. Classroom observations were noted in my teaching learning log. I was video recording my classes. Student journals were another data collection tool, as well as group interview at the end of the project. The data confirmed the appropriateness and success of the applied strategies. It has been shown that by providing students with opportunities to develop and apply the transferable skills such as creative thinking, collaborative and communication skills, reflective and inquisitive attitude, students were no longer passive recipients of knowledge or dependent on teacher, but active practitioners in a collaborative process of knowledge co-construction. As my role as an expert became less emphasized, it was possible to distribute authority more evenly in the classroom, and as findings have shown, that created an altered dynamic of teacher-student relations. This student-centered dialogic approach provided my students with the opportunity to express their own values and to be heard. Consequently, they appear to be more self-confident, involved in, and responsible for their learning. The applied strategies have helped me to move beyond employing exclusively traditional assessment methods. Finally, the data analysis revealed that the intervention made me become a more resourceful, reflective, informed, and responsive teacher, and changing what I teach was a step towards changing how I teach. The data showed that the journal assisted students' learning, and it was an efficient tool for student self-assessment and developing acquisitive attitude. Journal has also been a valuable tool for students to review and reflect on their learning, analyze progress, and identify areas that may need improvement. Also, journal entries were helpful in enhancing teacher-student interaction and determining whether pupils are ready to move on to the next level in the instructional process. Thus, the entries were helpful in informing my teaching. The strategy has given me a deeper understanding of each student's learning experiences and assisted me in planning my next lessons. To address the overlooked collaborative and creative activities, I implemented the choreographic task within my alternative ballet sessions. Pupils expressed how I should provide them with similar learning opportunities in the future. Furthermore, this assignment was a platform for continued success for a student who normally struggled in technique classes. Selecting movements to use in their dance sequence, the students practiced shared decision-making and built confidence in the ability to make effective choices. As my role as an expert became less emphasized, it was possible to celebrate student input and expertise. The choreographic task demanded pupils to communicate in the creation of movement composition. Thus, it also enabled students to deepen their relationships. Further bonds among peers were forged during the discussion sessions. As the students voiced their opinions and listened to that of their classmates and the teacher, the activity helped to build trust and understanding between both student-student and teacher-student. Actually, primacy of student interaction and values of dialogue are strongly reinforced in the literature. Dialogue seems to be a key element in making space for multiple perspectives in the classroom. This research project has also made me realize that the values which I hold as an educator are evident in the assessment strategies I implement in my classes. Therefore, a new framework was created for myself and my pupils to question and critically analyze teaching and learning practices. Recognizing how various formative assessment procedures might help me answer to my students' individual needs, I succeeded to move beyond traditional assessment methods and provided my students with the opportunities to become progressively independent of the teacher for lifelong learning. Finally, application of diverse formative assessment methods changed my role from that of the only reference for feedback on performance to one of a variety of sources. Repeated examination of the data revealed issues exceeding project scope and reaching into larger theoretical philosophical areas. My two types of classes and two teaching paradigms were overlapping over a set time frame, and that made for a hybrid learning experience. The alternative and traditional approaches to ballet complemented each other. In our alternative hybrid classes, one-way model of instruction was extended by new opportunities for learning and meaningful teacher-student relationships. This in-between space in which we learned connected the tradition and past with the present and future, and went beyond dualities of teacher-centeredness and student-centeredness. Learning within this environment, it was possible to address students' learning needs and incite creative learning experiences in collaborative and dialogic interaction. The distance between the pupils and myself decreased. Formerly unnoticed values and relationships were celebrated, and we were able to experience communality and transcend the boundaries set by cultural conditioning, age gap, and the roles we play. The following conclusions were drawn from the evidence. The educational aspect of ballet education was emphasized. Through the process of negotiation across differences between traditional and student-centered approaches, I argue that it is possible to refashion ballet education and create a hybrid classroom to overcome tensions that exist in the traditional studio. The instructive processes were significantly more dialogic, inquiry-oriented, and collaborative. Flexible and interchangeable student-teacher roles were noted, and non-hierarchical, meaningful teacher-student relationships. Opportunities for multiple ways of learning were provided. Students co-constructed knowledge. They were also encouraged to be more reflective, inquisitive, and creative thinkers, and supported to become well-rounded, active, responsible, and self-reliant dancers. I argue, therefore, that the role of ballet education is not only to learn a codified set of steps through traditional pedagogy, but to foster an acquisition of transferable, lifelong learning skills in order to meet 21st century expectations for students' learning. Taken together, this research project provides a theoretical and design framework for a change. It also promoted conceptual and empirical evidences why to look to concepts central to post-colonial theory when challenging established modes of governing ballet training and education. It is suggested, therefore, that a hybrid ballet course might be a connecting thread between curriculum, classroom, and the outside world, and finally a bridge between traditional and educational approach to teaching ballet. My suggestions for the future are to broaden the study and take an in-depth look at any of the dimensions of student-centered learning in ballet and teaching strategies that are most effective for accomplishing such a change. It would be interesting to investigate how ballet teacher training prepares its graduates for the effective use of student-centered teaching approaches, and what it means to teach ballet with regards to the local context. Examples of good practice when an educator is confronted with teaching within a framework, perspectives and concepts that were transferred from different times and places could also initiate additional discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.